يضيق خلقك. الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك. هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك. بس بلاش العين، لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك. الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك. هدي وارتاح ثابر واطمح من حقك. بس بلاش
يسقط حكم العسكر. يسقط يسقط حكم العسكر. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free
Hi, sorry, I'm not gonna stand up on the stage just because I need to click. But yeah, okay, let me just introduce myself. I'm Yasmin. So I went to Palestine in December of 2013. We went to the West Bank. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go into Gaza. They told us that the border was closed and that we'd get kicked out. So we were the unfortunate group who only went to the West Bank. But nonetheless, it was a really interesting sort of experience. So just a show of hands, who here has actually been to Palestine? Okay, cool. Where have you been?
Palestine itself.
Okay, perfect. All right. And how did you find it?
Overwhelming, heartbreaking, took me back in time, and it was just, words can't describe.
Okay, thank you. What places in Palestine, like what areas did you go to, like the West Bank?
West Bank, Palestine, Bethlehem, Alhamdulillah.
Okay, all right, perfect. So quite a variety. Okay, who else said they went? I'm going to pick on you. I saw hands there. Yes, where did you go?
I was in Jerusalem, West Bank, Ramallah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
We were there 3 years ago. We went to Jerusalem. It was quite an experience. I must say we sat the whole day at the airport. My mom was on the other side crying and praying that her daughter comes through. They body searched me, strip searched me, made me fill out forms 3-4 times, but that didn't stop my resilience. It only just wanted me to get there even more. We stayed in the old city. We did a tour through West Bank, Hebron. Hebron was quite heartbreaking for me to see people live with tankers, armies, soldiers. These kids just walk around as nothing. You gotta be there, experience, and for me to see those walls, it's just breathtaking. It's something else. We had a Jewish kids stone the buses, and they were in the wrong, but it was like we were in the wrong. We had to be questioned, we were stopped, we were not allowed to take photos, but we were prepared mentally before we went, so it was quite an experience, but you have to be there to feel it and to experience it. And once you go there, your heart bleeds. You want to go back and back, it bites you.
Okay, perfect.
I would encourage everybody to keep going.
All right, Thank you. Yeah, so there's quite a few of us, and I think that was exactly our experience when we actually went to Palestine. So the border that we went to was the border from Jordan into Israel, so that was quite an interesting experience. So like I was saying, we ended up at Jordan because Egypt was unfortunately not on the cards for us. Okay, when we first got there, I don't know, we were young and naive and we actually thought, oh, it'll be quick and easy, maybe like a slight delay. No, we waited at the border for 2 days. So for us, our delay was literally 2 days long. We had to go back on 2 separate days just to actually get into everything. When we got to the border, can I just describe how it was? We actually got prepared and we were like, no, it's going to be fine. You know, we all know about the pressure that the Israelis put on you at the border. Little did we know. There were 16 of us, 2 ladies, we'll just say over 24. The rest of us were all under 22, and we only had 2 people under the age of 18. So we were quite a young group who actually went. Of us, there were only 4 boys. And basically we just didn't get a chance to get through to the border. Our group actually started fighting because the way that it works is there's a psychological tactic that they use to fight. So like one of the other ladies was saying, when you're waiting at the border, they come back and they ask you stupid questions like, here's this form, is this an A or is this an X? Like, really? Are you really being for real? But yeah, that was one of the main things, and our group sort of just fell apart. When we finally left the Israeli border, it was around 10 o'clock at night with the time frame. Remember, it was winter when we went. It was freezing, and it happened to be that year that, I don't know if anyone saw the pictures of snow in the pyramids. That was the year we decided to go. So the way that it actually happened was that it was 11 o'clock at Amman, and the main Jordanian city was closed down, so we had to hire the bus that they used to take across, like to ferry people across from Jordan to Israel. We had to like bribe the bus driver, and eventually he let us use the bus for that evening. So yeah, we ended up staying in some really dodgy motel in Jordan, and when we got back the next day, the same thing happened all over again. So we waited and waited. By then our spirits were quite dead, and basically that was it for us. And the first time around, I think they only let through the 2 under 18-year-olds. Okay. All right, so these were my roommates. So of us, only 15 of us actually got in. The one lady, unfortunately, had to be left behind because they didn't actually let her through the Israeli border. Yeah, so my expectation versus reality of reaching Ramallah. So I actually expected it to be a little bit more like what the media bombard you with Gaza, so bombs and squalor, poor medical care, oppression, soldiers everywhere, humanitarian rights being violated everywhere, but nope, none of that when I got there. I nearly fell off my theoretical horse when I saw what Ramallah looks like. Kids who went to better schools than I did, they actually gave us these t-shirts. We weren't giving them anything, they were giving us stuff. 5-star hotels, freedom of movement, nice cars. But the more that you got to actually see Ramallah, the more you realize what a facade it was. It was a very fake city. Because I think one of the ladies actually told us a 16-year-old Israeli kid can walk in with a gun any day and destroy your entire life. That's how fragile life is at the moment. So departing Ramallah is actually when we first got to some of the more disgusting sort of humanitarian stuff. If anyone's ever stayed in Ramallah, you know about the border checks that have to actually happen. For those of you who don't know, they treat you like a sardine. So basically there's hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians who go through. Each Friday, I think, they're only allowed to go to Jerusalem once every Friday of the month. So that's no Al-Quds every Friday, unfortunately. Yeah, so you get like shoved into these tiny little sort of metal cages, I guess. There's no other way to describe it. And if I was standing, if I had to stick my elbows out, that's as far as the cage actually went. So it was quite a small one. Like, you can imagine what it's like with hundreds of people, how stuffy it is, how ridiculous it actually is. So at the end of each of them, there's a turnstile that is actually there. And at the end of those turnstiles, it's controlled by the Israeli border control, who basically act like robots. They pretend they don't actually know you exist. And yeah, there's barbed wire on the top. So I don't know if you guys can actually see these photos so nicely, but it's really quite stuffy, and it's not really like something you'd ever want to go through, let alone something you want to do every single day of your life. So we were quite privileged once we left Ramallah to actually go to places called Bil'in and a few other villages. So at Bil'in, they are a village that's really near the apartheid wall. So they are really quite active in whatever they do. They have moderately aggressive Israelis. There's no such thing as completely passive Israelis anyway. And they actually get quite frequent Israeli raids that occur in their village. So this was just us, and there's quite a few people who actually go to Bil'in because it's one of the safer villages that are around. So just what's here, I'll even show you guys a little bit more. Scattered on the ground everywhere, you'll find these rubber bullets. Now, for those of you who think rubber bullets are just rubber, it's not actually just rubber. It's rubber around a metal coating. So it's not really that great anyway. And there's also live ammunition. So one of the things we actually noticed when we were driving in, like getting into Israel now or Palestine, is that you see differences between, well, you see segregation immediately. Aside from the walls that you guys were talking about, you also get white lights and yellow lights. So we asked the driver, what on earth were these white lights and yellow lights? And he said that basically white lights are for Palestinians, yellow lights are for Israelis. Now you can imagine what that was actually like for me. I actually got chills. I was like, well, that's great, but, you know, for bombing and stuff, doesn't that make it a whole lot easier to identify your target? It's actually really scary. They're also segregated as far as number plates and stuff go as well, so it's also white and yellow. This is one of our really young Palestinian boys. I don't know if you can see, but he's kitted out in a full outfit. So not all of the Palestinians actually have access to this because a lot of them actually get confiscated. So he's in a full mask, so gas mask, bulletproof vest, etc., etc. But you also meet some of the craziest Palestinians that are around. This guy looks really passive at the moment, but he's a guy who regularly scales the Israeli apartheid walls just to prove a point. So he's quite a nice guy. And this guy in the photo just at the bottom, he's a photojournalist. His name is Hamdi, and he's quite active. So you guys can follow him on Facebook, and he'll interact with you guys quite nicely. So the other two villages that I also wanted to touch on were Al-Masrah and Nabi Saleh. They actually experience really aggressive Israelis. They have no actual medical skills as far as those things are gone. So when they get like tear gassed and stuff, there's nothing else that they really can do. There's no no equipment in general, unlike at Bil'in, because they regularly get raided and it gets taken from them. They also experience skunk water, rubber bullets, tear gas, live ammunition, and from these places, children are very often taken to detention centers. In Hebron, so I know a lot of you, if you ever go to Hebron, it's where you see the most amount of aggression that actually occurs. The aggression actually occurs from settlers rather than just the general Israeli soldiers. There was liberal firearm rules and regulations for settlers, so one of them actually got shot in like around Fajr time in some of the masjids. This was a little boy just indicating the water level that rose because people were throwing dirt into the streets and they actually clogged up all the drains. So you can see it's actually by his head. It's quite ridiculous. And while we were also there, we also discussed Israeli torture. Like, we were so used to Israelis, like, we think about physical brutality, but it's not actually physical brutality these days, it's more psychological. We actually were quite privileged to meet one of the freedom fighters that was recently released after his 16-month detention. So he was quite nice. Obviously everything happened in Arabic. I don't really understand Arabic, so I couldn't really understand exactly what he was saying. And yeah, for the rest, just know that, like, when we went to Palestine, most people did say, you know, even though we tried to offer help, we offered to take stuff to them, the only thing that they ever wanted from us was to come back and spread the message, to let them know that, you know what, this is happening in Palestine, do something about it, and there's nothing that we can do. Even though sending aid is great, the main thing that they wanted from us was just to know, or for us to come home and spread the message that Palestine is not free. Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Nabila Kathrada. Nabila was a dedicated therapist and is involved in youth projects with organizations like MRN. She has visited Jerusalem with her family, most recently in the Ramadan of 2016. Nabila.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello. My name is Nabila, and as has just been said, I've been to Jerusalem this year with my family. A lot of the stuff that I'll be saying has been said by Yasmin and the people in the audience. I would just like to say that going over there made me so humbled because I've never met people more welcoming and grateful and content with the little that they have. They always were willing to share, and they always wanted to be more involved in your life. They kept on asking questions, where are you from, how are you, instead of us asking them. Okay. So this is basically a picture in the old city. It's just before you enter all of the different areas. This is taken into the Christian quarter. We all know that there's 4 different quarters within Jerusalem. If you go into Palestine itself, you'll notice that in the Jewish quarter, the Christian quarter, and the Armenian quarter, all of the heritage sites and the historical things are well taken care of. Whereas when you go to the Muslim quarter, there's a lot of skunk water, dirty tiles, and it looks quite degraded. This is just a little picture of one of the houses within the old city. I was told by a man that his house, which is just a 1-bedroom apartment and has a small lounge, has been offered to be sold for 2.5 million euros because it's in the old city and the Jewish settlers would like to take over as much property as they can. Again, this is in the old city. It's in the compound within itself. It's the steps leading up to the Dome of the Rock. It's very beautiful. It was breathtaking, and I literally felt like I was walking on air. It was so amazing. Like this lady said, it was indescribable, knowing that I was walking among the footsteps of those great men and women before me. This is when we just arrived. It was early in the morning, so this was my first view of the Dome of the Rock. We were detained for just 4 hours, unlike Yasmin for 2 days. It was intense though. What I noticed was at the airport, they gave my mom and my aunt visas while not giving my younger sister, myself, and my uncle. The reason that they do this is to break apart families. With all of those that we spoke to, it was the same. Someone in the family had a visa and someone didn't. So they separate you in order to rattle you again. They break you down by asking you the same questions over and over in hopes that you might change it. They call you individually to see if your story correlates, and they basically want to know everything about your lifestyle, from your email to your number to who your grandparents are and what exactly is your reason there. Do you know people? Do you have gifts? And they keep on asking you the same questions over and over. This is also within the old city with the compound, so I stayed just outside of here. This is my daily route to walk into Masjid al-Aqsa. So the history, again, like was mentioned by the audience, was absolutely amazing. This is a little outside going to Mount Olive. It's actually a tombstone of Hazrat Umar's grandson. So this shows that there's so much rich history lying all around Palestine, which is why we know that it's ours, and it really has been there for years and years. These are just the different areas we visited. So this is Nabi Musa alayhi salam's mosque. It is where he is buried currently. This is a beautiful story. So this is the mosque of Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, which is right outside the church. Basically what happened when we went there was the Christians were quite welcoming to us into their quarter. They told us of an amazing story, I'm sure everyone's familiar with it, where Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu went and it was time for Zohar Salah. There was no mosque, so they built for him a little piece which is still standing there today. The most amazing part that struck me was the Christian man told me that up until this day, the family that opens up their holiest church is a Muslim family. So from then, right up till now, the key has been handed over for generations and generations. Again, this is just the beautiful architecture, the trees that are older than you and me. So this is a little bit about the culture and people. This is within the Christian quarter. This was in Jericho. It is where they say mankind began from. This is a little bit of the markets in Hebron. So I know the lady over there said Hebron was really heartbreaking for her. It's actually one of the places I found most inspiring, because Resistance stems from Hebron, and also there were children much younger than I will ever be that were so much braver. They stood up to the soldiers. They were taking away their iPads, but they pushed them aside and they ran away. It was amazing. I was terrified myself, and I was scared they were going to do something. They stamped on their foot and ran away. So this is again talking about the Palestinian hospitality. We were invited by a Palestinian family who told us of their heartbreaking stories. Their mother, who has 13 children, still has the key to her house, but she's not allowed there. A few years ago, they went back, and they told them if they ever returned, they would arrest them for life. It's also even sadder because the family is broken apart. There's some of them in America, some of them here, some of them in Romania, and they aren't allowed to see each other. They aren't allowed in or out of Jerusalem. Also, if they have a passport to Jerusalem, but if they marry someone else, or if they go to visit another place like Ramallah for an extended time, their passport and visa gets taken away. These are the little kids that we met just playing around. Like I said, they're so content with the little that they have. This is in Hebron. So the reason I showed this picture is because they have told us the way the Jewish allows for injustice is that they tax them heavily. Besides that, they don't have a lot of jobs. So in order to survive, you have to either work for a Jewish person or you have to do manual labor every day. These are just pictures again. These are the markets that you pass by every day, and this is the night before Eid. So as you can see, it's quite vibrant and busy. Okay, so the dark side of Jerusalem. If you can see closely, I'm not sure it's such a clear picture, but it basically reads that the road, this road is leads to the area under the Palestinian Authority. The entrance for Israeli citizens is forbidden. It is a dangerous place to your lives and is against the Israeli law. The reason this is so ironic is because there's actually Israeli soldiers that are governing this area. They control who goes in and out, but they keep on saying that this is dangerous. So that was really ironic. We were actually stopped from entering there 3 times. So I don't see the point of having those signs. It's just a facade to show the world around that no, the Palestinians are dangerous. These are the checkpoints Yasmin was talking about. They're constantly there, every place you have to go. This is near the Western Wall area. As a Muslim tourist, you're not allowed to go there. Sorry, I'm trying to rush through this. So this is again the Western Wall area. This was the night of Eid. You can see the soldier is trying to take a young little boy. So my sister's in niqab, and when they stopped for checks, they would come into the bus and make her lift up her niqab. Whether it was a man or a woman, they didn't care. These young boys were taken off the bus, even though they were just shopping and going back. They were taken and arrested for 3 whole days. Again, this is the checkpoints that Yasmin was talking about. You can see how many people need to go in and how small the turnstiles actually are. This is the resistance that we were talking about in Hebron. At the time that I was there, there were some killings, and so this was a newspaper article that showed even though that they are oppressed, they're still fighting against it. This is the wall. These are the t-shirts that they have. So a young man said this is the way that they fight oppression. They're not allowed to have things like this. They could get arrested for up to a year. So he makes t-shirts and sells it to the people that come, as well as his the flags being sold. This is them fighting for the other causes. So Guantanamo Bay, this is them fighting for Guantanamo Bay, which is amazing. This is the contrast. We find this in the Jewish area. You can see lovely weddings going on. Everything looks so beautiful. And then this was the night of Eid in the Muslim quarter. You can see how dull and grey the streets and the walls actually look. This was the night of Eid, so everything has been taken away. In Ramadan, they still had some freedom, but as soon as it ends, everything goes back and the curfews begin. And this is how it looks. A young boy told us not to take this picture because the Jews will take us away, which shows that how they constantly live in fear. And like I said, it feels like that is where I belong and I need to go back. So thank you. Sorry, that was rush.
لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك، الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك، هدي وارتاح تابر واطمح من حقك، بس بلاش العين. لا 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 ما تسوى الدنيا تضيق خلقك، الحمد لله ما حد بياخذ منك رزقك، هدي وارتاح تابر واطمح من حقك، بس بلاش